It was physical affairs. I traveled a lot, and there were some one night stands with strangers, and there was one while we were engaged before we even got married. There
Okay.
was one that I stayed with for over 2 years, but the rest were strangers.
I want to welcome you guys back to season 3 of the Grounded Union podcast, where we're talking with couples working through the healing process, going through the details, going through sometimes the valleys to get up onto the mountain to get back to a connected state. Today, we're talking with Russell and Kim here on the Zoom call. You cannot see them. We get the privilege of talking with them, but you just get to hear the audio from our conversation as we go back and forth. I hope you glean something from our conversation today with Russell and Kim. Russell and Kim, thank you guys for joining us. Could you give us a quick snapshot of where you are right now and what healing looks like for your relationship?
Well, where we are, just north of Atlanta, Georgia. It's noon here. But we just met and started dating. We're thinking about getting married. Actually, we were high school sweethearts before you were born. We've been together 38 years. We've been married since '93. I'd like to say it's all been great, but kids came and I got focusing on my career. And I don't know, it just seems we drifted, and now the kids are gone and trying to reconnect.
Is there anything else you'd want to add to that before we have Kim share a little bit with us?
I think you know from me being in the weekly every week
Mm-hmm.
that I've shared before that I haven't been faithful. That's been very damaging to our relationship.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Russell. Kim, where's the pain and where are you currently in the relationship?
Hopeful but guarded. It's just been a long road. I mean, yeah, we've been married for 32 years and together 6 more than that, but I never drifted. I was steadfast. I homeschooled our kids. I was there always, trying to bring him back to where he should be, priorities and whatnot. But it's just been a vicious cycle.
So when you say cycle, has there been multiple instances of the infidelity, and maybe give us a little more detail so we understand what that looks like?
Yeah, no less than 8 times that I'm aware of in the last, say, 23 years.
And then Russell, one of the things that I really like to hone in on is this is not going to be about shame. I can tell that because of the way you tell your story that you are ashamed of the details. And one of the biggest encouragements we want to give you in this hour is to help you and Kim heal. Not that you want to be proud of what you've done, but taking full ownership and saying that is what I've done. It looks like Kim, your shoulders are touching. Kim's still here. She's not she's probably surprised by the frequency and the duration, but she's still here. So even though your soul might be crying out saying, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not capable of loving my wife, I'm a failure, just look to your side and it's like, whoa, she's still here. What in the world? Why is she still here? Something about you she's willing to fight for. She's willing to look at you and say, yep, you've done all that and I'm still wanting to heal. So Russell, have you allowed that to sink in that she's still here?
Yeah, I don't deserve her. And I remind myself every morning that I'm lucky that she's still here. I'm blessed to have a good wife despite how I've treated her.
Yeah. So the infidelity, was that porn, emotional affairs, physical affairs? What was that?
It was physical affairs. I traveled a lot, and there were some one night stands with strangers, and there was one while we were engaged before we even got married. There
Okay.
was one that I stayed with for over 2 years, but the rest were strangers.
Can you describe to us a little bit more about we could call it an addiction, or describe a little bit more about your sexual story? We'll keep it, I'll take us back further, but just so I can understand the fuller picture, your sexual story within the 32 years of your marriage. So you've had 8 affairs. Some of them have been ongoing for a couple of years, and then like you said, some of them are strangers. And then intertwined in this, is there other aspects of your addiction, like let's say pornography or social media, anything else that kind of goes hand in hand with these affairs?
I've never had an issue, I guess, with pornography.
And by issue, do you mean you've never looked at pornography in 32 years?
And when I was 6 years old, I spent the night with a friend, and he showed me his dad's, and I thought it was gross and just never really wanted to look at it after that. But when I was in college, I enjoyed looking at swimsuit magazines. Is I guess you could call soft porn. I've never really been addicted to porn. I have drank. I have smoked cigars. I can say no, apparently, to smoking. Somebody's offered me a cigar. I can say no. Somebody offered me a drink. I can say no. But meet some stranger that wants to have sex with me, and I have a hard time saying no. And personally, I'm trying to find out why. I want to know where's that coming from. I don't understand that. It's not the way I was raised. I could tell you how my father was was an alcoholic and came home and beat us. But I mean, I could tell you that, but it wouldn't be true. The truth is, my father was a Southern Baptist preacher, and I was raised in the church, and I taught Sunday school, and I sang in the choir, and I led Bible studies, and was Boy Scout leader. So this is not the way I was raised, and I'm ashamed that I've done things that go completely against the way I was taught, and I don't understand why. I don't know where it's coming from. I've been seeing a counselor for a few weeks now. We talked about how I was molested as a teenager by our youth pastor for about 2 years, and the struggles that came from that, and trying to hide it and blaming myself, and until I was in college and my father found out about it and explained to me that it wasn't my fault. But I'm trying to figure out if that has anything to do with it. I'm not looking for an excuse. I want to own this. I know what I did was wrong. I want to stop. I want to know why, what caused it, and what have I got to do to stop it.
When was the last time you had sex with another woman outside of your marriage?
This is New Year's Eve 2 years ago.
You would know. You would know better than her because you were the one who had sex.
2 years ago. New Year's Eve 2 years ago.
New Year's
Oh,
Eve 2
coming up
years ago.
2 years in a few weeks.
And so what is the struggle now is you're saying that it's been 2 years since you've had an affair, right? And then you were just saying you want to be able to stop. What part of it feels like you can't stop it now? Like you feel like you still want to act out in that way?
Yeah, right now I feel like I could say no. Yeah, no problem. But then when I'm faced with it, when I'm in the situation, I want to say no, but I don't. And right now it's easy to say no, I wouldn't do it again. But I'm scared I might. She's scared I might.
How do you find yourself in those situations all of a sudden where women are asking you to have sex with them?
Traveling a lot with my work,
Mm.
especially before this current job, I traveled a lot and would find myself in the hotel bar having a drink, talking to people, making acquaintances, where you from, that kind of thing. And I know it just seems like things happen. I don't understand why, because that's not the way I was raised.
We're going to help you understand why. I just like to gain a little more information. And I think Brandon's got something great to say. I think I want to affirm that the story, we'll go back and we'll trace some more stories here. The story that you're sharing of being molested as a teenager 100% impacts every decision you make moving forward which sounds like it's only been a recent awareness, until you become awareness of that or aware of that situation, of that story, choose to recognize it and heal from that. Then it's almost like this puzzle piece, right? Like picture a puzzle that's like, have you ever done a puzzle and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just missing this one piece, and you can't finish the entire puzzle and it just bothers you and bothers you and bothers you, right? These are pieces of your story that are like floating missing puzzle pieces. So it's like the core of who you are doesn't really feel complete because you've left all these puzzle pieces roaming around. This is why we talk so much about exploring your story. You have to be able to grab that puzzle piece and look at it and put it into the puzzle of your entire life, because when it gets in there, you see the full picture, right? Then you're like, oh, because I've heard you say a lot, I don't understand why. This wasn't how I was raised. If you listen to your languaging a lot too, like you used, the phrase, I don't deserve her, I'm ashamed. I'm sensing a lot of shame here, maybe even a lot of shame and guilt about how your parents could have perceived you as you had described them, being pastors and religious leaders, you kind of growing up into that culture. And then now paired with a wife who stayed by your side, who's loving and understanding, you're kind of in this little mix of feeling ashamed, feeling guilt. And so as we navigate the rest of the podcast, become aware of the word. This is a lot of what you're hearing us teach inside the app. Become aware of the languaging and the words that you're using of like, okay, how can I be fully responsible for all of my life and all of my story, which means that I'm fully responsible for all of the healing that I will then create in my marriage. And that's going to completely transform the way that you approach all of this and even speak. Because as I'm asking questions, which obviously some of this maybe feels slightly less natural, and Kim can maybe affirm if this is always how you answer questions or if this is just on this format. Sometimes when asking questions, it almost feels like we're going like this. Kim, do you feel like when you're trying to understand his story, do you feel like you're kind of trying to like pull it out of him?
He can be very manipulative with his words. I don't know if that's intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I perceive him as a deceitful person at this point. I can't trust anything he says or does because I've spent so many years not knowing something's right, not understanding until much later why it wasn't right.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that gives a lot of context and understanding, because I'm noticing that in, 20-ish minutes here, however many minutes we've been we've been chatting together. So I can only imagine what 32 years of that feels like. So, as we explore some more, we can kind of even get into some practicing of how can we get into an emotional posture, a position where, Russell, you're like, I want to see why. Instead of saying, I don't understand why. I don't understand why I did this. I want to see why I did this. Does this make sense? We talked about this a lot on the last episode. If you just keep saying, I don't know why. I don't know why I did this. I just don't understand. Then your denial structure, your brain is going to be like, oh, he doesn't know why. That's fine. I don't need to tell him. Where if you go, I want to see why.
Yeah.
Your brain's gonna go, all right, Russell, let me dump it on you. Here's why. Here's the memories. Here's the stories. Here's the situations. And then Kim's gonna look and go, whoa, that was my husband who I thought was deceitful, who was deceitful for 32 years. And look at him. He actually wants to explore his story with eagerness. He wants to see clearly because there's only one person who can see Russell's story clearly. And that's you, Russell. And if you want to then see that story clearly and bring that to Kim in union as you've united your souls together for 3 decades and known each other for almost 4 decades, that's more than my lifetime. That's absolutely incredible. And yet at the same time, that's worthy of being like, whoa. I want to advance into a whole new level of intimacy for the next 40 plus years that you're going to be together because up until now, you haven't even experienced intimacy together because she hasn't been able to see into you. So as we're talking through this, it's like, Russell, you're deciding, do I actually want to see for myself who I am, who I've been, the decisions I've made, and do I want to heal that and bring that into my marriage to be seen, to experience intimacy?
Russell, so you were taken advantage of by your youth pastor for a long stint of time, 2 years, an unfathomable thing that has sadly happened to many people. And I was curious, what was your first, so that would be call that an unwanted sexual experience, something that was done to you. When was the first time you had sex when, we'll call it a positive experience, or you had sex and it was your choice?
Next time I had sex was with Kim, and I thought it was an enjoyable experience. There was a lot of anticipation and kind of unknown excitement, a lot of emotions. I wouldn't say it was very romantic, but it was, for teenagers, it was what I had looked forward to for so long.
So your first sexual experience was with Kim. So these, we'll call them the sex with strangers. You hadn't had any sexual experience in
After we got married, yeah.
And you said before when you were engaged.
and then the engaged story.
While we were engaged with one of my really good friends, but most were strangers. And I would say most of the time I had been drinking, but I can't say that was the cause because there were some times I was completely sober. So I can't blame it on drinking. I do want to find out why. And I've been asking my counselor to help me figure out why. I talked to my dad, trying to find out more about his history. And he told me some stories about when they first got married that I was not aware of. I didn't know my parents were separated for a while, but I'm just trying to find out why because I want to know why.
I like the shift in the way you're asking that question, that I can feel that even feels different, the languaging.
Yep.
Kim, question for you before I go back to exploring with Russell a little more. Why have you chosen to stay through all of this?
Mostly commitment, mostly faith, but I've definitely had my fill.
You've had your what? Could you say that one more?
Bill.
Your fill. Like this has been an
Like I'm done.
yeah, okay.
This is kind of your final straw.
He was never expressed being unhappy or me not being what he wanted. It was always behind my back. Like there was never an issue he brought to the table that needed to be addressed. And so even though I didn't know at the time what was wrong, I sought out help for what I knew, such as alcohol or whatever. And so Celebrate Recovery, that was a point in time where I thought, okay, now he'll figure it out. But it always circles back.
I want to piece together a little bit of this puzzle that doesn't make sense because what I think I'm discovering here is that there's actually major missing pieces to this puzzle. And Russell, you're saying, I want to see and I want to understand why, right? And a lot of your answers are actually going to be in these major missing puzzle pieces. And so here's a couple things where I bet you Kim has had these same red flags where I kind of go, oh, this is a little bit of a red flag for me because the story I'm hearing is your languaging around is actually hard to fully understand. The story I'm hearing though is that you saw pornography when you were 5, you didn't like it, and you've never viewed pornography since. Is that right? You said you'd never viewed pornography since the time someone showed you pornography.
I saw a video 25 years ago that would be considered pornography, but nothing since.
Okay, so that's some of the puzzle there. And then you were saying that, so most people, when they were exposed to pornography, then their story is then they have an addiction to pornography, right? So then there's this missing phase where you're exposed to pornography and then you have an unwanted sexual experience all the way into your teenage years. So then we have this kind of gap of time where there's no sexual history, right? The teenage years happen, you have an unwanted sexual experience, then simultaneously you guys are having sex together as high school sweethearts. I can't remember if you said that off air or on air, that Russell and Kim are high school sweethearts. They have been together for pretty much their entire lives. And so then you have this sexual experience, and then from there on out, it's just been 8. So we're going to say 8 in 32 years, 8 one night stands total. I don't know if is it 8 affair partners or 8 one night stands?
A combination. There was one that lasted a couple of years, and there was one that I got with twice, but I would say 6 of them were strangers.
Strangers meaning it was just a one time we had sex and we never saw each other again. And then the other 2, those are kind of could be sex more often than just once. Is that right?
There was one that I was with twice, and then there was one I was with for over 2 years,
How often for those 2 years that you were together?
like every week while I was supposed to be at work.
Okay. Every week. And then all of these times have been while you're on a work trip. Is that right? Or while you're supposed to be working?
When I was traveling, yeah.
Okay. So while you're traveling.
The 2-year affair wasn't while he was traveling. That was he couldn't hold the job because he was preoccupied with that relationship. Meanwhile, I'm at home raising my kids and he's worried about raising her kid.
Okay. So that job, it wasn't necessarily when you were at work. That was just in the day-to-day of life.
Yeah. We would say, "Good morning, I love you," leave, and resume the relationship with her.
Okay. And you would go to her house, Russell?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you refer to this woman as your good friend?
No.
That was
That was the one when I was in college before we got married.
Okay. And so this woman wasn't a good friend necessarily. It was just someone. How'd you meet this woman?
Her kid was in my Boy Scout troop, Cub Scout troop, and I was a scout leader, and we met through Boy Scouts.
Okay. So what I wanted to piece together here while I was playing it all out is there's this exposure to pornography at 5, and then we go from 5 to the teenage years of the unwanted sexual experience. Then we go into having sex together, and then we go into 8 is what you're calling it, 8 people that you've now had sex with in 32 years. So that would be pretty sporadic over the course of 32 years. And then you're saying there's no other unwanted sexual behavior. And what I want to propose here is that feels like, maybe Brandon will say something with this too, that to me feels like an incomplete story, which I'm not wanting to sit over here across the computer and say, Russell, you're lying, because that's not really, I know I can assume what I think is going on here, which is that you haven't hit this pivotal moment where you're like, I want to see it all. So right now you can see the top of the iceberg. We say this all the time. The top of the iceberg is these affairs that are really clear in your conscious mind right now. The bottom of the iceberg, you're not choosing to see yet. And I can hear it in your languaging. Kim can feel it in your demeanor. Oh, here's the other piece of the puzzle that's a little confusing. Is someone, you're saying that it's been 2 years without having acted out an affair, and then you're saying you have no other sexual addictions, right? Yet there's still so much of a rift between the two of you guys. It's clear that you have a history of being together, and then it's also clear that there's not a lot of love, connection, and intimacy in the union. So for someone who hasn't acted out in 2 years, yet is also feeling you don't feel free, like you said, you're kind of like, I don't know if I would choose that, if I wouldn't choose that. There's major missing pieces to the puzzle here. So there's a lot of what I would call red flags, a lot of what I would call under the iceberg situations, a lot of what I would call missing pieces to the puzzle. So you'll always actually be unsure of why you did what you did until you see the whole puzzle, right? And you can trick yourself. That's actually a strategy. It is a complete strategy to not want to see everything so that the puzzle piece stays all disconnected. At your core, you do want to see who you are. At your core, you do want to heal your marriage. I can tell that at the core that you want to see the truth. And so what I'm revealing to you, not because I'm saying you're not telling the truth, I'm almost piercing through the ice right there and going, whoa, just so you know, there's a lot more that you can see. There's a lot more that your subconscious mind can bring up for you
Yeah.
to fill in all these gaps and to fill in these puzzle pieces. And then you won't be asking why anymore. You won't be asking how. You'll be like, oh, here's why. Here's what's been going on. Here's why I don't feel free. Here's the stories. Here's all this world of things I've done that I haven't wanted to see. It's all in there. It can all be accessed and it can all be seen. You have to want it and allow it. And I can tell to your core that you want to be free.
Yeah.
And potentially, there hasn't been anyone that said, hey, the path to your freedom is seeing everything clearly. And the number one thing, I say this every time, I'll say it in every episode, everywhere. The number one thing that keeps you from seeing clearly is your denial structure. And the number one way to break down your denial structure is by saying, I am safe to see all of this clearly. I am safe for every memory to surface, for everything to come out so that I can be aware myself. Because when we live in denial, we lie to ourselves first. How do I know all of this? I watched this happen. I was also married to an extremely deceitful man who told me, I don't look at anything online. I don't objectify women outside. I don't scroll on social media and see all these images that are provocative. And I don't do this and I don't do that. And then years into our marriage, what do I catch him doing? All the exact things he told me he'd never done. And then, even then, I catch him doing some of these things and it's like, oh, don't worry though, I still don't do any of these things over here, right? Then 3 days later, I find out, oh, one of those things he's still telling me he never does, he still does. We'll go a little bit more. Oh, he's telling me another thing he told me he would never do or never had done that he does. Well, how was he able to do that? Because he had lied and told himself a certain story. We don't even have to call it lying. He had taken these situations and filtered it through a certain narrative.
Yeah.
So that when I would ask a certain question or when he would think about being honest, it's like, oh, none of those situations fit into this category, right? That can't be what they're talking about. That can't be what they're describing. Because even if you saw, I asked you 2 times if you had seen pornography, if I kept asking you a couple different times in a couple different ways, I could get some more stories out of you. I know it because I asked you a certain way and there was only the story at 5. I asked you a slightly different way and I got one more story, you said 25 years ago. So what that shows me there is if I want to interrogate you, which I don't, that I could crack open a little bit of your iceberg. Kim doesn't want to interrogate you either because that is not fulfilling to the union. What happens here is when Russell says, I want to see it all, the iceberg thaws out. That's what the embodiment is. That big ice tower you've built, it thaws out and everything underneath there can surface. And inside that might feel terrifying. And that's okay that that feels terrifying. It is, Brandon used to say this all the time, maybe you can speak to it. He used to be like, I had no idea I was even lying to myself about all of these things, And when you wake up to that reality, you experience a little bit of shock, like, whoa, there was this whole world I'd been keeping from myself to keep myself safe. Now I'm realizing that doesn't keep me safe. Kim's saying she's had her fill. She's fed up. She's done, right? So lying and hiding and keeping these things at bay isn't going to keep you safe. It's kept you safe, up the appearance of safety for 32 years. Now you've come to this pivotal, incredible moment where you get to say, whoa, I'm not choosing to hide this from myself anymore.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to open myself up and tell myself I'm safe to thaw out the ice so that I can see everything clearly.
Well, he answered your question, but he admittedly and knowingly left out other parts, even because it didn't specifically answer your question. For
Exactly.
instance, he knows and has admitted that even this year, this is how we came to this point. On his birthday, I saw text messages for him inviting a woman to come over or go out to dinner with him. Now, we had celebrated his birthday all weekend. The kids took him out to eat. I made a special meal, all the things. But he's out of town inviting a woman to go out to dinner with him, putting himself in the same situation that's led him down the path before. And he can say, well, I don't know how I can't say no. I don't know how I get myself in these situations. Well, yes, he does. He knows exactly how he gets himself in this situation. He wasn't in the hotel room calling his wife or kids to talk. He was out in places he shouldn't have been, doing things he shouldn't have been doing. That's how he gets in the situations he supposedly doesn't want to be in. And even 5 months unemployment. And he goes back to work and he's messaged through LinkedIn by a woman who wants to be helpful. And he falls for it again. It's never ending. It doesn't matter what he says he wants. He can't achieve that.
That is great context, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is I don't even need to hear those stories. I know there's hundreds of stories more like that are happening because, like I said, I already painted all these gaps.
He lives in a different world. He lives in a different reality, and I'm not there. Nothing that anybody can tell him to say or do is going to fix it for him.
Russell, what's going through your mind right now as we're talking about you? What's going through your head?
If there's anything else, I want to get it out. I think back to my childhood. I was always trying not to get caught. It's not like I wasn't trying to be a good kid. I was trying to see what I could get away with without getting caught. And now in my marriage, it seems like sometimes I'm trying to see, well, how much can I get away with without getting caught? And I don't know where that comes from.
You could say, I want, you could, I know we're doing a lot with language. You could say, I want to know where that comes from.
Yeah, I want to know where that's coming from because I think that's one of the keys to stopping this is knowing where that's coming from.
So you said you weren't trying necessarily to be a good boy, or did your parents think you were a good boy?
Well, I wanted them to think I was a good boy, but I was trying to get away with so much without getting caught. I think now they probably knew more than I thought they did.
Did you get caught very often? Or no?
And I know there are things I've done that they don't know. I think I spent most of my life trying to see what I can get away with.
And was that because the way like what the rules were for your home growing up? You said your dad was a Baptist pastor. Like, was your home life pretty rigid?
Very, very strict. He was in the military before he was a pastor, and he was abused by his father, and he was very strict. I don't know how I want to put myself in these situations to try to see what I can get away with because I don't understand where that's coming from, but I want to know.
We're not going to make it a positive, but let's make it a positive about what you do feel in these situations of, we'll call it acting out or trying to get away with something. When you sit down at the bar, we'll just use that as one example. This is, again, not the only time you've acted out. We're messaging somebody just for your birthday. But when you sit down at the bar, order a drink, and notice there's other women there, like, what does that feeling elicit for you? What's going on there in a positive sense? Like, what are you hoping to feel?
It's innocent, I would say, in the beginning because I love making friends. We traveled a lot growing up. We moved like every year and a half, 2 years. So I was constantly making friends. By the time I make friends, we have to move. So I like traveling and meeting new people, making new friends, especially if there's something I can gain from them through networking, whatever. But it starts off me just trying to get to know people, find something that I have in common with people. But then, maybe a couple of drinks into it, get a little too friendly, So I don't know the real reason. I'm just looking for a cause here.
So when you sit down to have that experience, I want to ask you to stop saying, I don't know why. Because if I told you I was going to go to the bar and sit down and drink and you were to help me identify what I'm doing, it wouldn't be a random thing. You do know why. You're hoping to escape.
Really good at pointing out why other people do things they do, but it's never interreflective.
Even if it's just a group of guys at the bar, I want to get to know each one of them. Or if there's nobody at the bar, I'll still sit down and order a drink. So it's not like I'm looking
When you're
for a woman.
alone, but not with me. Because that kind of behavior that I would go along with.
How many guys do you have friends with that you text that you met at the bar?
The only guy I text with is a guy I met at work, a friend from work. That's really my only.
And you didn't meet him at the bar?
No, I didn't meet him at a bar.
That was a leading question because the narrative you're trying to paint to us, which I'm not falling for it, is that you like to go to the bar to make friends with all genders. What I just made you aware of, which you can make yourself aware of if you want to, which is what we're always going to come back to, is you don't go to the bar to make friends with guys. First of all, stop going to the bar. Second of all, stop drinking. Third of all, you don't need any female friends. I'm going to point out these things that are probably obvious to every listener, and I know they're obvious to both of you at your core. I'll say them again to pierce through the denial structures. Stop going to the bar, stop drinking, and stop having female friends. Right now, everyone that's wise is going to go, well, of course, we have to get to the core of why you're doing those things. I know why you're doing those things. I'm going to tell you the answer right now. I'm going to give you your answer to why. Because you have a bags full of things that you haven't been willing to come clean about yet. That's why. And it's simple, yet as difficult as you want to make it to get to the other side of healing. Because it's simple. All it is is seeing clearly and bringing that to Kim, the one you've united your soul to, right? Now that's difficult because you have to want that for yourself. Kim even said she doesn't feel like you're ever going to be able to be fully honest. I understand how you would feel that way. I guarantee, Russell, guarantee you can see clearly. You can create an entirely new marriage. You have to want to see that clearly, though. So when you say, well, I just go to the bars because I want to make friends, I want to make connections, that's not true. And you know that. You go to the bar because you're wanting to sleep with another woman, to have that excitement, to have that arousal, to have that experience.
And feel like it happened to you,
And
not that you
feel like
chose
it
it.
happened to you. See, because if you go to the bar and go, I'm just trying to make friends here, and this woman just came up, started hitting on me, and it's all her fault. I don't know how my penis got inside of her vagina. All of this was forced upon me, which everything links back. That's why you have to look at the beginning of your sexual experience. I can't get much from you though, because from 5 to, let's say 15, 10 years, there's 10-year gap. There's not a 10-year gap. There's sexual encounters or things you sought out or saw in that time. You just haven't become aware of them through the iceberg yet. So you did have an experience that you did not want, that did happen to you. And so now in these situations where you're almost posing them to recreate a situation that's very, very similar to that one. And if we even got into the detail, which I won't, this is something I would advise that you explore, is if we got into the detail of that story of abuse, it's possible that there's actually a lot of similarities to these affairs that you have then acted out in. Like one story we've shared on earlier episodes is a friend of ours. He was abused at his neighbor's house, receiving what he thought was going to be a massage. He ended up getting more than a massage. Fast forward, he hadn't healed from that situation, goes into marriage and starts going to massage parlors and getting more than a massage. It wasn't until he had a conversation with Brandon that he realized the parallel there. Oh, I have this unhealed trauma of abuse where I thought I was going to get a massage as a child from a safe person, ended up getting abused. Now I'm recreating that situation in the same exact ways. So your story, you're giving little bits of your story and we're seeing little glimpses here. And we could run with some of that. Yet I want to spend this hour making you aware of there's way more pieces to the story here. So I could take some of your story of like, okay, you grew up in a rigid a rigid home. Sounds like you had loving, intentional parents, yet rigid home, you wanted to try to get away from stuff. So yep, you even know this. So now you're trying to do that. But I'm going to say there's way more here even. There's way deeper layers. That's this. If you're willing to tell me that and you're barely willing to tell us anything, then I know there's way more to be explored. So I don't want to do you a disservice and focus on these things that you are revealing to me. Those are great. Those are amazing that you've brought those up and you've brought them out. And what I want to tell you is that there's so much more. And it's not okay, maybe there's more. And I know that you know right now more things. I know that they're sitting in there. I know that they're coming to mind. I know that things that can come up and out, even these situations that Kim knows about that she's talking about recently, I'm thinking here that there's this 2-year gap where you slept with someone and then now you guys have been all fine. And Kim's sharing though these couple of other stories. So there's more stuff like this that wants to come out and be surfaced. And the more you realize that's where my healing is, you don't even have to ask why. I told you how. I told you why and how. Why you haven't been able to get free from acting out in this way is because there's pieces of the puzzle you haven't chosen to see. How can you never feel like you want to go to the bar, drink, and have female friends that you sleep with is through seeing your entire story clearly and bringing this to Kim so that you can heal together.
Russell, are you wanting to see things with that level of clarity?
Yes, I want to get to the point, to the other side that y'all talk about, where you get through it all and get to the other side where we have this intimacy that y'all have accomplished. That's where I want to be.
Okay.
Amazing.
What are you afraid to see on the path to that?
I think I've hidden things from myself. I think there's some things, some lies that I've told to myself and to others that I've forgotten about and pushed it down. I think once that gets started to come out, that there's going to be a lot more there than I remember. There's a lot of my childhood I don't remember, and I've forgotten most of my high school. It seems like the older I get, the less I remember of growing up. But when I sit down and think about it, like I was talking to my dad this morning, he told me a story, something happened when I was a child that I didn't even know, but it reminded me of something I had forgotten forgotten. And so I'm starting to remember a few things that happened when I was a child that I had forgotten about. So I think in this process of healing and talking about the things that I've done and said, lies I've told, I think once I get started, I think there's going to be a lot more come out.
Okay.
I'm going to start remembering things that I had forgotten.
How
I'm
does
loving
that?
your
I'm
language.
liking your language a lot.
Mhm.
And what are you? I know you said I want to identify like what scares you about that. So you're going to see things that you didn't know had happened to you, or things that you've done and things in your relationship. When I tell you that, when you tell yourself that, what emotion does that bring up? Is that fear, or are you like, hey, I'm ready to jump into this? Where are you at right now?
No, I'm ashamed. I'm scared of what's going to come out, knowing that I'm going to be ashamed of whatever it is. And one point of clarity, the sexual abuse was when I was 13, 14, and 15. We moved. We were in New Orleans for my dad going to seminary. We moved to Alabama, and I met Kim. I was, 17. So she was 15. So there was a gap between the sexual abuse and when we started dating.
Mhm.
But everything else you said was true.
So you're afraid of what does the feeling of shame feel like in your body, Russell, when you have a memory, or we're talking, I imagine you felt it a little bit even today as we're exploring this. What do you feel in your body? Is it a pit in your stomach? What do you feel when you feel shame?
Just goes back to my childhood. I'm afraid my parents are going to find out and they're going to be disappointed. Kim's going to find out. She's going to be angry and leave me. There's a lot of fear.
And that feeling of like, so it's this feeling of I'm going to be rejected because of what I've done, that those that love you will think differently of you.
I don't want to disappoint my family. Or I know Kim probably believes I'm hiding a bunch of stuff, and so she won't be surprised, but I think she'll be angry, and I know there'll be consequences, and it would just be easier if everybody would just stop talking about it and we could just pretend like it didn't happen. But I know to get to the other side, we've got to go through this.
Mhm. Do you feel, because you say it would be easier if everyone stopped talking about it, do you feel really good in your body, really good and vibrant in your life with your marriage and with your kids? Like if everyone just left you alone and stopped talking about it, do you feel really alive right now?
No, I
No.
think about it all the time, and I see my kids doing things that I disagree with, and I feel like that's partially my fault because I've done things I shouldn't have done, and so who am I to tell them not to do what they do? And I've done worse, so I blame myself a lot for the things that I've done, and I don't want it to come out, but I know that's the path to healing.
I want you to think about it this way, Russell. In this, luckily you don't have to do this, or it hasn't happened yet, but let's picture that Kim is out of the picture. Your kids have disowned you. We'll call it your spiritual community has also disowned you. There's nobody left. And we'll just use God as a broad example because I know everybody comes from a different faith background. Let's just picture that it's just you alone with God. Would you still want healing? Like, would you want to feel alive in your soul? If everybody else had left you, would you still want to heal?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely.
Then I think what we start with is that place. We actually don't know if Kim will stay. She's already been through a lot. We don't know if your kids, you don't have to go tell them everything, but we don't know what they'll think about you if more comes out, or if Kim leaves you. We don't know if whatever may come. So ultimately, you're not going to do this for acceptance from your family or your wife. You would never choose to just try to heal from things that we'll call them very damaging. You don't do it to hope that they love you in return. Russell, your greatest act of love is for yourself to say, you know what? I've been dying a slow death for 30, 40 years where I've tolerated living in this way that's killing me and killing everyone around me. So you're not going to do this for them. I want you to do this for Kim. I want you to do it for your kids. And at some point that will happen, but you got to recognize like you need this no matter who's around you.
Yep.
So therefore, this isn't for acceptance or rejection. This is because you want to get to the bottom of this virus that's been killing you your whole life. And your ability to heal is your ability to see it. And like you said, when you sit with it, you see it. So when you feel that vortex of shame of what if they leave me? What if they catch me? I want you to really sit in that feeling. I want you to amplify that feeling and say, yes, they've already caught me. Kim's already caught you. She's a smart woman. She's going to keep catching you. That's not going to change. She's done though. She doesn't feel like doing that anymore. You don't want to drag her along doing that anymore. So instead of worrying about what if they catch me, look at yourself in the mirror and say, I've been caught. This is good. I don't have to live this way anymore.
Yep,
I just need to see it. So when you're in that battle with yourself of like, I don't want to see it, say, yes, I do. The more I see, the more I can heal. Russell, everything you choose to see in this next few weeks, days and months, what you choose to see, what you choose to take ownership for, what you choose to heal from will no longer impact you in the future. But what you choose to suppress, to stuff down and say, can we just move on? You're back at the bar. You're back in a hotel room. You're back in LinkedIn messaging somebody. You're lying to yourself. You're not actively engaging in life from the way you want to be. So they say seeing is believing. Seeing is healing. So Russell, everything that comes up that's like, don't look at that. Flip over the stone. Open it up, the door. Say, I do want to see this. Kim already sees it. We already see it. We hardly know you, and we can see that it's killing you.
Mm-hmm.
And we want you to live a long, prosperous, healthy life. And we want you and Kim to experience intimacy for the first time that's genuine, and there's no more secrets under the rug. So, Russell, you're already a part of the app. I want you to dive into the Grounded Intimacy program in the app. We'll send you a follow-up email off air. We'll send you the steps to take. What you've got to do is do this for you, because doing it for everybody else hasn't gotten you anywhere.
Right.
Think about that. Okay, I'll answer a couple questions. I'll go to a couple counseling sessions. I'll go to the altar and pray. You're doing it for everybody else. If you do it for you, you can actually go the distance,
Yep.
because you'll begin to see it, and you'll be like, man, I'm ready to see it.
I want to bring up two final thoughts here, because you had said, circling back to this, you had said it would feel easier if everyone would just leave me alone and stop talking about it. And we already identified, right, that you actually don't feel great in your body right now. You don't feel alive. You don't feel vibrant. Your marriage doesn't feel alive and vibrant, right? So I like making really simple truths stand out. So the truth is not actually that that's not actually true. You don't actually want everyone to leave you alone, because you don't want to live life this way anymore. So to say that that would be easier is actually false. It appears easier, right? And you've been doing a lot of things that appear easier. And so a lot of this is coming back and thinking through that. Like, does that actually feel easier for me to hold so many lies, to live feeling dead in my own body, to live feeling disconnected to my wife, to live feeling disconnected to my kids? The more I'm talking, we're all thinking, wow, that sounds terrible. That doesn't sound easy, right? Now let me paint this picture for you. You get everything out. You see everything, and you bring that to your wife. You don't even have to tell your kids about these things. You don't even need to tell your pastor. All I recommend is telling the one who you united your soul with 32 years ago. Guess what? When you clean that up, the ripple effect directly impacts your children. You don't even need to tell them I messed up and all the, if you want to, you can. They'll see a different man, because a man that no longer hides and lies from himself, a man who has a unified, intimate, connected marriage, people will see that from a distance. How do I know this? Because this is what happens to us. People will see that from a distance and go, whoa, they've got something incredible going on. Your children, they've watched you be married their entire life. Your kids are older. They're 28, 25 plus. Like 25 years of their life, they've watched your marriage suffer. Do you think if they watch the next 25 years, the next 30 years, 40 years of your marriage thriving, you wouldn't even have to say anything? That has a major impact. So when you heal, you see everything clearly. You bring it up to your wife. You rewire your brain through the 4 R's, which we teach in the Grounded Intimacy. That's an easier path, because you're alive now. Your marriage is alive. Your children are alive. If I just described which road, everyone would say, I would never pick that road where I'm falling apart, my marriage is falling apart, my kids are falling apart. They would never pick that road and label that easier, right? So reality is coming back to truth, back to awareness, to this is easier. The only thing making it difficult is myself, is my denial structure. The second thing I want to make as a realized truth is that oftentimes people in this space will be worried about, okay, well, if I tell my wife all that I've been hiding, like, Russell, that there's more things you need to share, even as we close out this call. If I tell her, she's gonna leave me. I already heard Kim say she's had her fill. She's done. Guess what? If you choose to never bring anything out to the open again, you just choose, I'm going to tell you those couple things I've told you, and that's it. Next time Kim finds something out, the next time after that, do you think she's going to hit a point where she's done? Absolutely, she's hitting a point where she's done. Like, choosing the path of keeping all your secrets does not guarantee that you get to stay in your marriage. That's actually a guarantee of divorce. That's a guarantee of the relationship actually crumbling. I can guarantee that if you get out all your secrets, you get in your body and you come alive, your wife, who's known you her whole life, is gonna want to be a part of that marriage. She doesn't want to be in a marriage where she has to check your phone for LinkedIn messages of you trying to sleep with another woman when you've been telling her, well, I want to understand why. I don't know why. I don't know how. That's not a marriage she wants to be in. She wants to be in a marriage where you sit down and go, here's 30 years of lies I've been keeping from you. And here's how I'm going to wake up and get in my body. Here's how I'm going to rewire my brain and replace this and create a whole new life for us. That's a man that Kim wants to stay with. That's a life worth creating. That's a life that's beautiful where you come alive. And when you come alive, Russell, everything that you touch comes alive. You know what I'm even thinking as I'm talking right now? You probably need a new job. you need to figure out something in there because your work is associated with a lot of sex. That's associated with a lot of other women. And your life right now, as you come alive, everything else is going to come alive. Your work included. Something there's got to have a major change right now. You need to have a big old interrupt to that because right now that path has been leading you into sex. And so I don't know what that looks like for you. It's just that's kind of coming in as you heal and come alive. Everything else around you is going to heal and come alive. And that might look like a lot of changes and they're all going to be so good. I think I've said this in every episode and I'll say it every time is if you choose into this healing 1 year from now, looking back at this moment, I guarantee you, email me a year from now, I guarantee you will not regret having shared everything, getting everything out, coming alive, recreating a whole new marriage. 1 year from now, though, if you choose to live as you are, if you just choose to get out a couple things here and there, I'm going to save some secrets for me, your marriage is probably ended in a divorce, right? Which path would you rather take? The one of radical honesty and transparency to yourself and to your spouse, recreating a whole vibrant life, or the one where you barely share, you just share enough to not look too much like a bad boy, to not hurt your wife, not hurt your parents, not hurt your reputation, and then your entire life is still left crumbling. You don't feel alive. The answer is really obvious, and the path is actually really quite clear.
The final thing I want to leave as we finish this podcast is, Russell, I want to encourage you. Are you on any sort of TV, movies, social media right now?
No, we're trying the detox this week. We're in step 6 of the 7 steps, but I've removed all social media from my phone. I've been watching, my phone actually tracks how much time I spend, and I've been watching just this week. It's just gone down to just a couple of minutes of texting and emailing, and that's it. So I'm a movie buff, and we have a home theater with surround sound, but I told her I'm willing to give up movies and TV if that's what it takes to make this work. And so we have been watching TV since. There's a TV in our bedroom. I know you're against that, but I have tinnitus, and we play the sound of rain and thunderstorms on a blank screen with that TV. The TV in the living room plays Christmas music. It's next to the Christmas tree.
It's going to be a big picture frame is what it's going to be.
Yeah, we listen to Pandora, Christian music, and right now we're listening to Christmas music, but we're not watching TV or movies. We're going to see the difference.
Good.
I actually like going for walks. If I can get home before dark, we can go for a walk. But
Yeah.
Amazing.
Good. Okay. I want you to continue that especially the situation you're in, that's like,
Mm-hmm.
that needs to continue for like at least the next year, like more than just another 30 days we're doing in the community. But I still don't have any form of entertainment, but I'd cut out all consumption for years.
3 years.
3 years. I don't consume now. I don't even if I need to research something, it's a quick research, but I want you to you can become the architect of your life instead of just it feels like life's happening to you. And also with how much you're wanting to explore into your story, you don't have the opportunity to use those 4 hours of movie time in the evenings. It's time to sit with yourself, to do the embodiment. You're going to have an abundance of energy, an abundance of time, and emotional, mental space to do that. So Russell and Kim, this is a defining moment. This is the defining hour. I want an email a year from now of you being happily married or happily separated, meaning Kim's finally getting freedom, and Russell, you chose to not dive into this. But I'm guessing that you're not going to take that choice. You're actually going to dive into this. Thank you for sharing your story with us, and I want to thank you guys for tuning into today's episode. We'll see you next week on the Grounded Union podcast.
thanks for having us.